Welcome back to our channel. In that seemingly peaceful house, the cracks in the family relationship are gradually showing. This week, Beyond the Gates brings the audience a tense and emotional episode when two half-sisters, Kat and Eva, enter an inevitable confrontation. Martin and Kat, after many days of keeping it to themselves, finally explode into a heated argument, causing the whole family to be shaken. Meanwhile, Shanice complicates things further by picking a fight with Ted. But who knows, amid the back and forth, something else might be glimmering. Secrets, hurts, and unnamed emotions, all will be revealed in the episode airing on Friday, November 7th, 2025. Will this family still have the last thread of connection, or will everything fall apart beyond the gates? Fire. One seemingly peaceful afternoon at the Smith-Richardson home became the beginning of a storm no one saw coming. In the stillness of the living room, where white walls still carried traces of a family once praised as a model of order and virtue, Martin and Smitty walked in, and the sight in front of them shattered everything in a matter of seconds. Samantha, the daughter they had always believed to be obedient, was tangled in Nathan's arms in an intimacy that could not be excused. What froze Martin wasn't just that image, but a small, haunting detail: a condom lying carelessly on the floor, an undeniable piece of evidence that this house no longer held the boundary between innocence and transgression. Martin erupted like a volcano. His fury was not only about Samantha, but also about the fear clawing at his own heart, the fear that he had failed as a father, that everything he'd controlled so tightly was beginning to crack. Smitty, though trying to remain composed, could not hide the shame and despair as he looked at the daughter he'd once cradled like a precious gem, now standing there, head bowed, trembling between her two fathers. They quickly agreed on a punishment. Samantha would be grounded, stripped of every privilege, cut off from the outside world inside her own home. But to Martin, that still wasn't enough. He believed his daughter needed to be taught a lesson about honor, discipline, and never betraying the image their family had worked so hard to construct. Yet, in the midst of that harshness, Samantha began to reach for the one thing she lacked the most: understanding. She did not turn to Martin, knowing he would only see everything through the lens of morality and authority. She turned to Smitty and Nicole, the two people who had once been her safe haven during her most fragile moments. Samantha believed they could see her not as a sinner, but as a girl trying to understand herself, her feelings, and the limits imposed on her in a family ruled by too many rules. But would Smitty and Nicole dare to go against Martin, who enforced control like a doctrine? Or would they also turn their backs, choosing to stand with what was right instead of what was compassionate? When Martin discovered Samantha meeting privately with Nicole, his anger was ignited all over again. But instead of stepping in, he stopped outside and listened, and what he heard made his chest tighten. Samantha told Nicole how deeply she was influenced by Kat, the Aunt Martin always saw as the embodiment of rebellion. In Martin's eyes, Kat was the one who broke order, the one who brought things that shouldn't exist into their family. But in Samantha's eyes, Kat was a symbol of freedom, someone who dared to love, dared to be wrong, and dared to live honestly. Things murky, inappropriate relationship with Tomas. For Martin, that was the last straw. He became convinced that Kat had corrupted Samantha, that his younger sister had planted dangerous notions in his daughter's mind. Martin declared he would speak to Kat directly, but deep down, it was more than a conversation. It was a warning, a battle to reclaim authority in his own house. He could not accept that a woman he saw as unstable had become his daughter's inspiration. Earthquake. When Martin confronted Kat, the air inside the Smith-Richardson home turned suffocating. Every word he hurled at her felt like a blade aimed at her dignity, and Kat refused to stand down. She struck back with her own truth. Samantha was not a victim of influence, but a product of suffocating control. That it was Martin's harsh parenting that had pushed his daughter to break out at any cost, even if it meant crossing every line. But was Kat right? Or was she only defending herself? Was Samantha truly searching for freedom by defying her father, or was she unconsciously repeating the same pattern of rebellion that once destroyed Kat? Another tragic cycle with no escape? Meanwhile, Chelsea, Kat's confidant, became the silent witness to a secret she wanted no part of. She knew Samantha had overheard their private conversation, and that knowledge could bring everything crashing down. Chelsea tried to persuade Kat to explain, but it was already too late. Samantha had withdrawn, carrying inside her a storm of fear, anger, and betrayal. Kat, realizing her mistake, searched for a chance to explain, but Samantha no longer wanted to listen. In Samantha's eyes, adults were hypocrites, preaching morality while hiding their own sins. From that moment, the fractures within the Smith-Richardson family began to spread. Martin no longer looked at Kat the same way. Their already fragile sibling bond now stood at the edge of collapse. He started to question not only Kat, but also Nicole, the ex-wife he saw as too lenient, too soft in raising their daughter. Smitty, once the bridge between them, was now dragged into the vortex. He watched everything fall apart, helpless, knowing that every decision, right or wrong, was pushing Samantha further out of their reach. Late at night, in her locked room, Samantha stared out the window and wondered, was she becoming a bad person, or was she simply a girl who dared to love and live honestly? Was Kat truly her inspiration, or just a mirror reflecting the darker side of herself she was afraid to face? And Martin, the man who insisted everything he did was for her, did he realize he was the one breaking her? In that house, everyone believed they were right. Martin believed in order. Kat believed in freedom. Samantha believed in her feelings. But when convictions collide, all that remains are the broken pieces of a once perfect family. The question is, who will have the courage to look directly at the cracks, accept the truth, and begin to mend? Or will they all go on living behind the closed doors of Fairmont Crest, where secrets, sins, and honor blur into one, and no one truly knows what is left intact? On a morning that seemed ordinary at Fairmont Crest, the air grew heavy again with all the things no one dared to say. Kat, a woman far too familiar with being hurt, stood outside Ted's office door, her heart tightening with rage. She had just learned that Eva, the half-sister she had never accepted as family, now called Ted Dad. One simple word, but to Kat it was a blade sliding through the thin armor she had built over the years. She had once been the only one to call him that, the only daughter under his protection, even if that love had always been tainted by secrets and sins Ted tried to bury. Now, hearing that word fall from someone else's lips, she felt replaced, pushed out of the life of the man who had once been the center of her universe. In his attempt at redemption, Ted had spent months building a relationship with Eva. He had no idea that every gentle gesture toward this new daughter was fuel to the fire-consuming Kat from within. She could not understand how the same man who had been so distant, so harsh with her, could now so easily open his heart to the girl who had been part of her humiliation and pain. Was Ted trying to make amends by replacing his love for Kat with a more convenient daughter? Or was he simply seeking peace in someone more agreeable, less defiant, less likely to remind him of the very sins he wanted to forget? When Kat stepped into the room, Ted's eyes flashed with surprise, then quickly hardened with caution. No one spoke for a few seconds. Only the ticking of the wall clock filled the silence, as if reminding them that every buried wound must eventually be exposed. Finally, Kat released her words like a blade. "I hope you enjoy the only daughter you have left, because you can't have both of us." The sentence froze the room. In her eyes was not only anger, but a profound ache. The ache of a daughter who had spent her whole life waiting to be chosen, only to watch someone else take her place. Ted said nothing. Perhaps in that moment, he understood that what he had broken could not be repaired with a few gestures or apologies. His secrets, affairs, and betrayals had not only ended his marriage to Nicole, they had carved an unhealable wound between him and Kat. Now, as Eva called him Dad, he thought it was a second chance to make things right, but he forgot that Somewhere else, Cat was still carrying the weight of being abandoned. Was there any way for him to mend these two lives severed by his own hands? Or would he have to accept that for one daughter to feel loved, the other had to feel lost? Cat walked away, but her words lingered in the air, clinging to Ted long into the night. Under the dim light of an empty house, he sat alone, searching his memory for the little girl who once clung to him every night. While Ted drifted between past and present, Shanice, the head nurse at Fairmont, happened to witness the confrontation. She hadn't meant to eavesdrop, but the raised voices in the hallway made her stop. Shanice was not someone who enjoyed involving herself in others' private matters, but this time she couldn't just walk away. In Ted, she saw a man losing himself in the wreckage of his past, and in Cat, the raw pain of a child who had never truly stopped being abandoned. She didn't know what moved her: pity, empathy, or something deeper. Ted had made serious mistakes, but he was not heartless. He was the kind of man who tried to save everything even when there might be nothing left to save. And Shanice, with the instinct of someone who had survived her own scars, understood that sometimes what people need is not forgiveness, but someone brave enough to confront them with the truth they run from. She went to Ted not to console him, but to hand him a dose of reality, a firm, compassionate truth he had never been forced to face. She told him that if he truly wanted redemption, he had to stop trying to be the perfect father to two daughters and instead learn how to be a man who took responsibility for the damage he had caused. She did not raise her voice, but her gaze stripped him bare, as if she could see through every layer of self-defense. From that moment, Shanice became an unshakable presence in Ted's life. She appeared whenever he was certain he had hit rock bottom, reminding him that atonement was not the same as endless self-punishment. But as the holidays approached, the atmosphere at Fairmont Crest began to shift. Shanice and Ted were seen together more often, at first because of work, then with a different kind of quiet energy between them. There was something unspoken there, a pull that was both gentle and dangerous. Shanice did not know what exactly drew her in. Was it the broken man who seemed desperate to change, or was it the reflection of herself she saw in his eyes? Someone who had lost faith yet still longed to love? Their growing closeness did not go unnoticed, especially by Nicole. Though divorced, Nicole still saw Ted as part of her life story. When she saw Shanice and Ted standing close, sharing a smile that was clearly more than casual, a strange feeling stirred inside her. Was it jealousy? Or just fear that the man who once belonged to her was finding comfort in someone else's arms? Did she even have the right to feel that way, knowing she had once walked away from that marriage? In the days that followed, everything grew more blurred.
Kat stayed distant.
Eva remained carefree in Ted's embrace. Shanice stayed by his side more than before. Nicole started losing sleep. Fairmont Crest, once a symbol of elegance and stability, now felt like a house made of glass, one touch away from shattering. Each of them held a fragment of memory, a secret, a wound, and all of them were slowly drifting toward a point of no return. Would Ted find the courage to face everything: two daughters, two women, and his own guilt? Or would he keep sinking into the same cycle of lies and regret? And if Shanice truly came to love him, would that love save him? Or would it turn out to be another misguided attempt to heal what refuses to heal? Perhaps only when every truth is finally dragged into the light will they see who truly needs saving: Ted, Cat, or all of them. Thank you for taking the time to watch my video. All the content I make is just my personal speculation and sharing. If you find the video interesting and useful, please support me with a like and leave a comment. If you have better ideas or more interesting speculations, please share them in the comments section for everyone to discuss. I appreciate all your contributions and support. Sincerely, thank you.